Have you ever sat waiting for a game to finish uploading on Steam? Or waiting for a Windows update to complete and you see a loading bar in your face and it suddenly stops at some random percentage like 99 or 52% or something? Why does this always happen? And what's the point of all this? Wouldn't it be easier for everyone, designers and users, to just have a loading bar that it actually shows the amount of progress that's being made instead? Well, loading bars are more than just functional elements in our digital lives. They're actually carefully crafted psychological tools. And all this paused loading stuff actually has a good reason for being there: to mess with our perception of time. Time isn't as straightforward as it seems. Our perception of time can stretch or shrink based on what's going on around us, how we feel, and what we expect. This flexibility in how we experience time is a huge part of understanding why loading bars are designed the way they are. Imagine standing in line with no idea how long it'll take to reach the front. It's pretty frustrating, right? Every second feels like an eternity. But when you can see the line moving, each step forward makes the wait feel more manageable. That's exactly what a loading bar does in the digital world. It turns an uncertain wait into a visual journey with a clear endpoint. It's not just about showing how much time is left, it's about managing our expectations so the wait doesn't feel as long. This is where the goal gradient effect comes into play. The goal gradient effect is a psychological concept that suggests people get more motivated as they get closer to reaching a goal. Originally noticed in animals, this principle has been shown to work in humans too. The closer we get to completing something, the more effort and more patience we're willing to put in. Loading bars take full advantage of this effect by visually representing progress. As the bar inches closer to the finish line, our anticipation builds, and we're more willing to stick it out. It's like the last leg of a marathon. It might be tough, but it's also the most exciting part. In digital interfaces, when we see a loading bar nearing completion, those final moments of waiting don't seem so bad. In fact, just speeding up the loading bar's movement as it approaches the end can make the whole wait feel shorter. Designers often use this trick, creating loading bars that will start slow and finish fast, playing directly into our cognitive biases. Related to the goal gradient effect is something called the pacing effect. How fast a loading bar moves can seriously change how long we think we've been waiting. Research shows that people like it when a loading bar starts with a quick burst of progress, even if it slows down later. That initial burst creates a sense of momentum, making the wait feel less tedious. Imagine downloading a large file. If the progress bar zooms up to 50% in a few seconds, you might feel relieved, thinking the progress will be quicker than expected. Even if it slows down afterward, that initial boost has already set your expectations, making the overall wait seem shorter. This pacing strategy is a careful balance between speed and patience, where the designer choreographs the flow of progress to keep us satisfied. By giving the illusion of rapid progress at the start, the loading bar makes us feel like things are moving along nicely, turning what could be a frustrating experience into a more bearable one. Beyond just showing progress, the way a loading bar looks can also affect how we experience waiting. The aesthetic usability effect tells us that users are more forgiving of and satisfied with designs that are visually pleasing, even if they work the same as less attractive ones. A well-designed loading bar does more than just indicate progress. It can make the wait feel shorter and less annoying. For example, a sleek, smoothly animated loading bar might feel faster and less irritating than a plain static one, even if both take the same amount of time. The aesthetic appeal enhances the overall experience, turning a wait into a minor inconvenience rather than a major interruption. This effect is especially strong in today's digital world, where we expect a certain level of polish and sophistication in everything we use. Designers often add subtle animations, color transitions, or even interactive elements to make the wait more enjoyable. It's all about turning what could be a pain into a moment of delight. Loading bars also play with our minds by creating illusions of progress. Sometimes the progress shown by a loading bar doesn't exactly match what's happening behind the scenes. But this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a deliberate design choice to improve our experience. For example, some loading bars are designed to move quickly through the early stages of a process and then slow down as things get more complex. This tactic works because we're more patient at the beginning of a wait, and our patience starts to wear thin as time goes on. By giving the illusion of fast initial progress, the loading bar leaves us with a better impression, even if the total time hasn't changed. In some cases, designers might even introduce false progress at the start to give us a sense of momentum. This can be particularly useful when the actual task is tricky to measure or involves several steps that take different amounts of time. By smoothing out the perceived progress, the loading bar helps keep us calm and engaged throughout the wait. One of the most powerful psychological tricks in a designer's toolkit is the illusion of control. People generally prefer situations where they feel they have some degree of control, even if that control is mostly imaginary. In the case of loading bars, this can be achieved by providing users with feedback and options during the wait. For instance, a loading bar that not only shows progress, but also gives additional info, like what tasks are being performed or how much time is left, can make us feel more in control. This reduces anxiety and frustration because we feel informed and involved, rather than just sitting there helplessly waiting. Interactive elements like a cancel button or a retry option can also enhance the sense of control. Even if we never actually use these features, knowing that they're there makes the experience more tolerable. The idea that we could take action if we wanted to gives us a psychological boost, making the wait feel less oppressive. This illusion of control is a subtle but effective way to improve our experience during loading times. By making us feel like active participants instead of passive observers, designers can reduce the negative emotions associated with waiting and keep us engaged. David Maister's classic work on the psychology of waiting lines gives us valuable insights into how our expectations shape our experience of waiting. While his research mainly focuses on physical cues, the principles he outlines are directly relevant to digital waiting experiences, including loading bars. Maister's key finding is that uncertainty is the biggest source of frustration when waiting. When we don't know how long we'll have to wait or what's happening during the wait, our anxiety goes up, making time feel longer. This is why loading bars that provide clear, consistent progress updates are so effective. They eliminate uncertainty by giving us a sense of how long the process will take and what stage it's at. Additionally, the way a wait is framed can significantly influence how we perceive time. If a loading bar is accompanied by a message explaining that the process is complex and requires time, we're more likely to be patient. On the flip side, if the process is presented as something quick but ends up taking longer than expected, frustration mounts. So managing expectations through clear communication and realistic progress indicators is crucial for reducing the perceived burden of waiting. By setting the right expectations from the start, designers can keep us satisfied, even during longer wait times. Recently, some designers have taken the concept of the loading bar to the next level by introducing gamification elements into the waiting experience. Gamification means using game design elements in non-game contexts to make things more engaging and fun. In the case of loading bars, this might involve adding interactive elements, minigames, or engaging animations that we can interact with while we wait. The idea is to turn the waiting period from a passive experience into an active one. By giving us something to do while we wait, designers can distract us from the passage of time, making the wait feel shorter. This approach is especially effective in situations where loading times are long or unavoidable, like during large file downloads or complex computations. Gamification taps into our natural desire for play and achievement, turning a potentially frustrating experience into one that's enjoyable and rewarding. It's a perfect example of how understanding the psychology of waiting can lead to creative design solutions that make our experience better. Loading bars are more than just functional elements. They're finely tuned psychological instruments that shape our experience. From the way they manage our perception of time and progress, to how they make us feel in control, every aspect is designed to make waiting a little less painful, and maybe even enjoyable. So the next time you see a loading bar, take a moment to appreciate the thought that went into making your wait as smooth and satisfying as possible.